This video is made possible by Tabletop Totality. More on them later in the video. I've been DMing for this group of guys from my class for about 2 years. Over these past 2 years, we've played in the same Tolkien-inspired run-of-the-mill world I made in like 20 minutes. I asked if maybe they'd be down to go to a different plane or give Oriental adventures a shot. I even offered to write up a brand new setting. They didn't want to do any of it. I told them I was going to take a break from DMing for a bit, and the next day they confront me outside my class and tell me they feel crappy. I don't want to play with them anymore. I told them I'm just over Faerun right now, and they're acting like I insulted them or something. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the smartest when it comes to reading people and situations. I have no clue what happened. I didn't insult anyone. I've been testing unconventional settings in my new campaign, and I've gotta say, it's been a lot of fun. Shame that some players just don't want to do that at all. Well, here's to finding a new group, I guess. This campaign started very simply. I put a sign-up sheet at the front of the store that explicitly said what the setting and levels of the campaign would be, and what the first session's inciting incident would be as well. We had a session 0 for the 6 people who signed up. All of them said that they were cool with the premise, a low-level campaign that would take characters from level 1, minus their class, all the way to level 5. They would be kids, 8 to 18 years old, who banded together to save their village while the adults are fighting away at a war. This was designed to help younger players get into the game, which is why I picked this plot. We had a 12-year-old in the campaign after all. The store owner immediately made a sexy, half-naked tiefling. He was only at session 0 though because of business issues, thank God. Everybody made their characters 18 because I don't want to play as a kid. Never mind that they all agreed to do it ahead of time. The actual kid at the table was fine with it, so I let it go. Minor adjustment. The kid was used to video games, so I forgave anything he did that I wasn't happy with because he was learning. He did his very best to improve. He was a good kid. My other friend, who we'll call Good Player, dove headfirst into roleplay. She was all about playing a farmer who was not used to combat. She was scared of the monster, she tried to help without being cocky. It was great. Then, we run into all the problem players. Fighter decides that his character hates his parents and therefore has no family connections in the village. He's super great at combat. His stats would disagree, but whatever, because he was trained to be a soldier. Cringy, but nothing too terrible yet. Ranger decides they also have no fear of anything. Monk decides he's super fed up at Good Player because her character knows fear and decides to yell at her in character about it. The last player, Blacksmith, decides he doesn't want to even be in the town that the entire campaign is to be based in. You might notice a trend here. 4 of the 6 characters had already picked their classes, and they weren't supposed to have any classes. They just played as if they already had the classes that they were supposed to pick based on the way their characters acted in session 1. Now, I don't consider myself to be the greatest GM, and I admit that I was unreasonably upset at things not going the way I wanted them to go. But aside from a few exasperated comments in session 1 and 5, I think, I didn't express a lot of frustration in-game. I just kept changing the game to fit with what the players wanted. The characters made it to level 3 within 10 sessions at the request of the players, and the focus moved away from the starting town to become a story of these characters seeing the world for the first time instead. I created foraging charts for the ranger, I created an entire monastic tradition for the monk, I gave the fighter plenty of opportunities to join the town guard in more than one city, I allowed Good Player to develop a really cool warlock pact with the world's first shade when it became clear that she did not enjoy her original patron. I really tried my hardest to give them what they wanted, and make the game fun for them. In the end, the campaign went on for 2 years. Some of the players that stuck around actually started growing on me as they developed their characters and became less selfish as players. So I'd say the real horror story was the first dozen sessions, plus one player later that went on for about 4 other sessions, but that's another story. As a DM, I never really enjoyed the campaign though. I wanted to play a style of campaign. Everyone agreed to it. Then everyone ignored it and did whatever they wanted, and while the players got better over time, my enjoyment never did. It just wasn't what I wanted to play, and isn't the GM's enjoyment also important? TLDR, over 9 people eventually signed up, not at the same time, for a campaign that only one of them actually wanted to play, and they strong-armed me into completely changing the whole thing. Guys, life is short, D&D is long. You do not have time to play campaigns or run campaigns, especially, that you do not enjoy. That is crazy. If you're not enjoying a campaign, I know it's hard, but you have to drop it. If you're just not enjoying the concept, there's nothing wrong with walking away. I respect this DM's tenacity. I respect them changing their campaign to match what their players want. But yes, the DM's enjoyment is absolutely important, especially since if you're not enjoying the game, you're not going to run it nearly as well. If I'm not enjoying a campaign, I change it up. I talk to my players about it, and that's what we've done for the past few years. When I'm getting burnt out, I change up what I'm doing and I talk to my players about it. That is the way to go. Guys, walk away if you're not enjoying a campaign because you don't have time to play games that you don't love. This happened a while ago during an online game of 5th edition. The DM seemed nice and the party got along well. After a session 0, we began with the campaign as caravan guards. One of the caravan guards was a black dragonborn NPC named Resnir, the star of this tale and of the campaign, as we'd later find out. Resnir was a couple of levels above the rest of the party, who were only level 1, but we didn't mind as level 1 PCs are very squishy, and it wasn't unreasonable that there was a stronger adventurer in this world. The caravan gets attacked by orcs, and the DM goes into great detail describing how Resnir solos the orc chieftain and about 15 other orcs, and randomly swears that he will defeat his father after he beheads the orc chieftain. Following the session, we're all talking about the sesh, and the DM asks us what we thought of Resnir. We'd only just met the character, so our answers were pretty lukewarm, but looking back, the DM had clearly put a lot of weight on that question. As the game progresses, Resnir starts showing up more and more often and becomes more and more obnoxious, constantly monologuing about some prophecy and his destiny to one day slay his father. Another black dragonborn that was set up as the BBEG. The problem was that when the party didn't really show much interest in Resnir or voice this to the DM, he would only double down harder and make Resnir show up more and more often, or be connected to quests in the most taboo way possible. The party is helping with rescuing a kidnapped villager from a goblin cave. Resnir shows up and saves the party with a trail of dead goblins behind him. The party is investigating a trail of heists. Resnir shows up too, and it's somehow related to his whole crusade against his father. It got to the point where almost every encounter that had an NPC that wasn't Resnir would either keep talking about Resnir anyway, or would just lead to Resnir. At one point, in desperation for anything other than Resnir, the party started galloping away from Resnir on horseback during one of his monologues about honor and duty, etc. The DM describes Resnir continuing his monologue as he keeps up with the party while on foot, and we're on horseback. The party had just about had enough when we all confronted the DM about the fact that we weren't enjoying everything revolving around this dragonborn, and if he could just ease it up a bit, to which the DM responded, "This story is about Resnir, and I'm not changing that." 2 players immediately left the group and did not return, and the rest of us stayed out of a sense of either desperation for a game or just morbid curiosity. The remainder of us had enough, however, and conspired to get our revenge on the DM's DMPC, who had become the object of all of our frustrations. In the final battle against Resnir's father, I guess the DM thought he was throwing us a bone when he had Resnir be grievously wounded and beg for our aid. See, according to the DM, this was our defining climax moment, defending his DMPC from a bunch of mooks until he could gather the strength to pull together and defeat his BBEG father. But we didn't do that. Instead, almost as one, we all decided to swear our allegiance to Resnir's dad and attacked Resnir while he was down. We were a pretty high level at that point and dealt at least 200 damage to the Black Dragonborn in one round. When the DM seethed and tried to retcon our actions or hand-wave them, we pushed back and used his own words against him over how injured Resnir already was. Finally, after a long moment of silence, the DM realized his precious DMPC is screwed. He utters the words I will never forget.
As you sink your blades into the body of Resnir, you feel no resistance, and Resnir the Black fades. It's a hologram!
I left the group. So did everyone else from what I hear. TLDR, DM makes OPD NPC, forces him into everything, and makes plot revolve around him. Then has him turn out to be a hologram when a fed-up party tries to kill him. We've talked about DMPCs before, and yeah, they are not fun. Guys, the party are always the main characters. Nothing wrong with putting an ally in the fight. I've done that before. My party have had to defend casters while they weaken the BBEG, or defend people while they make portals to create reinforcements or something. But every time, the party are the ones taking center stage. In big climactic fights, the party aren't helping someone else. Someone else is helping them, because the party takes center stage in the climax. That's always how it is, if you want to be a good DM at least. Now this DM clearly did not know how to make a great adventure, but there are some ways that he could have made it a lot easier on himself. Such as with Tabletop Totality's newest book, Terror in Port Dakala. Look guys, we've all been there. The session is coming up and we don't have anything ready and we want a unique adventure for our players. Well, Tabletop Totality has got your answers. Contained in this book, you have 4 original adventures taking place in their world of Drakuva. It is compatible with Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition and is loaded with new monsters, spells, magic items, and most importantly for me, new maps. So, if you guys are interested, head down to the description down below, pick it up on Drive-Thru RPG. Supporting our sponsors supports us, and without further ado, let's get back to the video. So we're starting a new 5th edition campaign. It's a low magic setting with Nordic themes, which I was on board for. Didn't know what class or character I wanted to be, so I went with fighter since I never played one before. Despite the cliche, I chose human because they were the most featured race in the campaign setting that the DM spoke of, and I didn't want to go out of the setting the DM was building by playing a kobold, which I'm not even sure exists in this world or not. But the other members of the group were a bit annoyed at me for choosing such a boring race-class combination. But I thought nothing of it and stuck to my idea anyway. First combat, I'm in. I get a crit on me and I lose my hand. So the DM is running some homebrew injury table thing, and what do you know? My character loses their hand. That means I can't use any of my fighter abilities. Great Weapon Master is not allowed, and I gain permanent disadvantage on strength and dexterity, as in both skills and saving throws. And just to be kind, they also gave me -1 to those abilities as well. So essentially, I can't do anything but be a human shield in combat. But I was prepared to go along with it because it could lead to some interesting role-playing. That aside, I don't have to worry about it anyway because this injury can be fixed with magical healing and remove it. Success! Now the ranger can heal me and it's all fixed, right? Ranger? Ranger? Are you gonna heal me? Hello? Turns out the party doesn't want to heal me because it's too funny. So the only way for my character to heal is to have rests and second wind. They refuse to heal me at all, which means I'm stuck with these permanent debuffs and I can't use any of my fighter abilities. Their actual solution is that it might be best for me to change character and start again since I'm now worthless to the party. I just get in the way. That's what they're saying. I had a Tabletop Tavern Tips video planned about human fighters and why they are really great and can absolutely work because there are so many human fighter characters in media that are beloved. So I don't understand why they couldn't work in D&D, and I canceled it because I figured everyone knew that already, that human fighters could work, but this story makes me think otherwise. I hope I can just say it here, but playing a human fighter is fine. In fact, it's more than fine, it's good. If you have fun playing human fighters, hell yeah, that's awesome. So my favorite characters that I've created have been human fighters. So I don't see what the hate's about, but I hope that this is just some fringe D&D side culture that takes the joke of the human fighter way too seriously. Also, recommendation for fighter player here, leave the group. This is not attitude that is going to create a fun role-playing dynamic. Just trust me on that much. Hey everyone, my first proper horror story that I remembered recently when talking to my sister. So for a background, I have a half-sister who is younger by 1 year and has been my best friend since forever. Even though we didn't live together because of our parents, we talked every day and studied in the same school by our request. The kicker is that we didn't have the same interests or the same friend groups. She was an academic sort and I was a geeky dumbass. Because of that, when I was introduced to an RPG by friends, she didn't really want to take part in it because it wasn't her kind of fun. Fast forward a few years, we started college and talked more online than anything else. I still lived in our town while she started studying in another state for her tuition. One week when we were on call, she refers to Stranger Things and Dungeons and Dragons with interest, and boy, I was happy. I started talking to her about D&D, classes, how to play, races, world building, what the DM is, and she basically fell in love with the idea. Her mom didn't really approve of her starting theater in high school, so I guess this was her creative drive. Come the holidays, not long after, and she came by to stay with the family, and I asked if we can hang around our local store and look for a table to play at. I usually DM since I started playing D&D, but I was excited to play with her and wanted at least one other player she liked. My friend that came with us was a weird guy, but not the focus of this tale. One guy was starting a one-shot campaign about pirates and had another 2 players already, so he told us we could play 2 if we wanted. We made our character sheets and my sis made a half-elf ranger with a stag companion. We were sketching during the week. I made a genasi rogue and my friend a dwarven fighter. The other 2 guys made a cleric and a warlock. The problem player is the cleric. They seemed friendly enough, but the cleric player was way too friendly with my sister especially. He talked to her about how her hair was glowing, her eyes looked like crystals, and she looked like a doll. That last comment made her just put on her jacket. I didn't notice at first, and I hate myself a lot when I think about it because me and my friend were joking around about our characters, but Sis said in hindsight she was really uncomfortable with him because he kept staring at her like a hungry dog. Our session started with our characters being stranded on a pair of lifeboats after our ship was attacked by a kraken summoned by a rival pirate crew. Cleric asked where each of us were sitting, and the DM explained the scenery. The DM said, "I guess you could choose where you sit, doesn't really matter." Cleric responded by saying,
I'm gonna sit with the ranger, check if she has any injuries.
No, she doesn't. You're all fine, but your food is running out. Sister responds by asking, "Oh, can I fish for something?" "Oh, yeah, sure. Roll for—"
Yeah, you can. See those skills there? You can use them to...
He kind of just interrupted to explain how skill checks work to her while she just kept staring at him blank-eyed. DM ignored him, and by extent my sister as well. We ended up on a small island where we could find food, so we decided to explore and try to find something there. We ended up finding some ruins and fighting the weird wildlife that existed there. Me and my friend's player character went first to find traps since we had the best perception checks, while my sister asked the DM to check the plant life around the ruins with her nature knowledge. The cleric asked if he could help her, but he didn't have any of the skills necessary, so he expended a spell slot to help with her rolls instead. Inside, we find a big empty room and some real deep tunnels. It looked like a dungeon, and I got excited because my sis always liked seeing me play Darkest Dungeon on Discord, so I thought she'd like D&D combat. However, during this time, I was so focused on the scene that I didn't see the cleric player trying to flirt with her and getting way too close. We didn't actually play more than just the first room, which was a trap maze, because my sister said she wanted to go home and wasn't feeling well. She rushed out, and I said sorry to everyone while going after her. Now my sister doesn't like being a party pooper in any way to anyone. More than once she stayed listening to our grandpa talking for over an hour about nothing, so I just thought that she ate too many Doritos. During the next week I asked her to play again, and she said the game wasn't for her, so I just stopped asking, and the holidays were over not long after. It wasn't until today when I was telling her about my session that she said, "I really feel like listening, but after that one game, I guess it just doesn't sit right with me." I stopped and asked, "Why? You were playing so well." And she told me the parts of the story I didn't pay much attention to, like the cleric player trying to touch her leg while telling her how he would help her out and didn't need to worry about anything. My memory isn't very good, I guess, for most things, so I just thought that she was feeling unwell. So I kinda just went blank for a while. We still talk a lot, but I feel really crappy that I wasn't aware of this happening right under my nose. I'm posting here with her consent to also serve as a warning to anyone who plays with people important to you that strange people can be sketchy, so be alert. Doesn't matter if it's D&D, in a party or in a store, perverts make overtime. Unfortunately, that is a very true statement. I've said it before, but look, when you're looking for groups and random people are coming up, you gotta be careful. There are a lot of people that play D&D and a lot of crappy people, and sometimes those two things are going to coincide. Good job on OP for reflecting on this. Keep your eyes open, and if you see something wrong at the table, try to call it out. I understand, I get it. Confrontation, well, it's not fun, especially a subject like that, but if you just let it lay, trust me, you're going to regret it. It is not a good thing, guys. Call it out when you see it. On that cheerful note, we are going to end today's episode of RPG Horror Stories. If you guys enjoyed this episode, then please do leave a like. If you want to see more of my content, then please do subscribe to Crispy's Tavern. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment, Human Fighter, to let me know you made it to the end of the video. In essence, like, comment, subscribe. I will see you all next time. Farewell.